Hey guys, my name is Pam and I'm excited to make this video because I know when I first started studying for my board exam, I had no idea where to start, and there was a bunch of study materials out there and I just didn't know what to buy, and it was just a mess. So hopefully this video will help you guys organize yourselves and also just know the pros and cons with different study materials that are out there, so you guys can also pass the board exam. So hopefully you guys find this video helpful, and thank you guys so much for watching. Alright, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is deciding on how many weeks you're going to need to study. I decided to do 6 weeks, and the reason why is because I went on the Nbcot's Facebook page, and they actually had a chart that showed the average number of weeks a student typically studies for the board exam, and that was 6 weeks, and so that's what I decided to do. And I also wanted to say that I didn't study during field work, and I didn't study during school. I mean, I guess technically you're studying, because at school you're studying materials that are on the exam and also during field work. But what I mean is that I didn't really focus solely on the board exam and test taking and etc. Until after I was done with all those requirements, because it was just very hard for me to focus on the study materials that I bought, and I just decided that I was going to give my full attention to fieldwork and classes when that was going on, and then give my time for the board exam afterwards. So 6 weeks I felt like was a good amount of time. I felt like I had enough time to read everything and then review everything in time for the exam. So after I decided to do the 6 weeks, I decided to basically take studying for the exam as a full-time job. I would typically start studying around 7 a.m., 8 a.m. to about 4 p.m., 5 p.m. I would take a lunch break and stuff, but I felt like having it as a full-time job really helped me just kind of sit there and just focus and then get it done, and not have all day of just I'll study a little bit here and a little bit there. I feel like just making myself being okay, this is your job now for these next 6 weeks, I felt like that was very helpful for me. And then on the weekends, the only thing I do on the weekends is take a practice test, and I'll explain that a little bit more later, because it wasn't a practice test for timing, and it wasn't also for to see what grade I would get. It was solely just for studying, but I'll explain that a little bit later because that has to do with therapy ed. But yeah, so it was basically a full-time job, Monday to Friday. There was a couple days during those 6 weeks that I didn't study. Either I had a birthday or something going on, and that was okay. I felt like my study schedule was good enough to be able to finish everything in time for the exam. And so the third thing I wanted to talk to you guys about are all the study materials that I bought. I ended up buying 3, which I know is a lot and can be very, very expensive. I was very hesitant on it, but I ended up buying them because I just personally wanted to have all my grounds covered. However, obviously, if you can only afford one or you only have access to one, passing the exam is doable, so don't freak out. There are a bunch of free materials on different Facebook sites, different Facebook groups, and also on YouTube, OT Mary. I feel like she's amazing, and also OT Rex, and then there's OT Exam Prepper Audio, I believe is what he's called, and he's awesome. You can just listen to him while you're taking a walk or on a drive, so don't freak out. But I wanted to also talk about the 3 study materials that I bought and the pros and cons of them, so if you are considering buying them, you'll know what you're getting and how I approach them. But obviously you can approach them any way you want. But alright, so the first thing that I bought was this therapy ed book, and I bought this one because our school actually makes us take the course in it, and so this comes with it, and so that's what I bought. And I originally thought that this was going to be the only study material I was going to use. However, when I first started reading it, I was very overwhelmed. It's an outline format, and so if you're comfortable with just reading bullet points, then I guess this is a book for you. But personally, I like more paragraphs and a little bit more explanation, and so it was very hard for me to sit down and just read it. So I did not read this book cover to cover. However, I felt like this book actually came very handy once I was basically done with studying, because I used it along with the Nbcot study packet, and I'll explain that a little bit more later when I talk about the Nbcot study packet. But I feel like that's when I was like, oh man, I really like therapy ed. The second reason why I really like this book is because of its pediatric chapter. I felt like it was the only study material that I didn't feel like I had to go to a different source to find more information on. I felt like it was very well explained, and the reason why I say that is because pediatrics is a lot of just developmental milestones and reflexes and stuff, and that's just straight up memorization. And so I felt like this book just had it very clear. The charts were awesome, really liked them. So definitely recommend it for its pediatric chapter. And then the third reason why I'd recommend this book would be for its practice test. And earlier I mentioned how I would take a practice exam every weekend. I didn't take the therapy ed practice test for timing nor for scores or anything like that. I took it purely for just studying. And so I would do, because what I would do is that therapy ed comes with an internet access code. So I would go online and I would just try to answer the question myself, and then I would look into the textbook and see if it was right or wrong and read the explanation why, because it actually comes with a pretty, it's one of the books one of the sources that actually the reasoning behind the question is awesome, and it just really makes sense. This is why this is this, if that makes sense. And so I would do that for every question. It would take a while because I would, do question 1, look at the answer, read the explanation, do question 2, read the answer, read the explanation. It'd take a while, but I felt like I learned so much from therapy ed because of that, and so I would definitely recommend it for that. All right, so the second study material that I bought was the Aota study packet, and I actually really liked this one, and I have to say this was the one that I mostly used to study. I felt like it was very easy to organize myself because of what came with the study pack. So it comes with 14 PDFs, I believe, 1,200 multiple choice questions, and just a bunch of clinical stimulation questions. And so it was very easy to organize myself with the PDFs because each PDF was a different topic. And so let's say one day I would dedicate myself to burns, second day I'd dedicate myself to, whatever, and then the next day or maybe for 3 days I would study musculoskeletal, so just depending on how big the PDF was, but typically I would do about a day, and if it was longer I would do about 3 days of studying the PDF. And because it was very easy to read, it's in paragraph form, I would study it like I would typically study for an OT school exam. I really like Quizlet, and so I would read the PDF and I would make myself questions, I would study it, and then after I was done, what I really liked about the Aota study packet is that I could go to the multiple choice questions. And so what I would do is that, let's say, like I said, I studied burns the first day. I would read it, and then I would do the Quizlet for it, and then I would do, what's nice about Aota, you can actually put the topic of question that you want, so you can just take burn questions. And so I felt like that was very helpful. It kind of made sure that I knew the material and that I was good to move on to the next topic, if that makes sense. However, some cons about the Aota study packet is that sometimes I felt like it wasn't detailed enough in certain cases. So when it comes to the MET levels or the Allen cognitive skills, I felt like I had to use a few other resources to kind of complement the PDFs. But that being said, I felt like it was very straight to the point, and I really, really liked them. And also, when it comes to the Aota questions, I know that, well, first of all, they're not like the board exam questions in the way they were written, but I felt like it was awesome to study them, and you learn so much from taking the quizzes. And so that's why I would recommend them. I felt like Aota was that study material that I mainly used, and I got so much out of it. So I highly, highly recommend it. All right, so the last thing that I bought was the Mbcot study packet, and I actually used this one a lot the last week and a half of studying for my board exam. So like I said at the beginning, the first let's say 4.5-ish weeks, I mostly did Aota and those PDFs and those questions, and then on the weekends I would take one of the therapy ed practice tests. And so that's what I mostly did, but the last week and a half-ish of studying, I mainly used the Nbcot study packet, and I actually used it along with the therapy ed one, which I'll explain in a little bit. But to talk about what the Mbcft study packet comes with, it comes with flashcards, it comes with games, it comes with some practice questions, a pre-test, and then a full board practice test. And I really liked all of them. Starting off with the flashcards, the way I would study this is, well, first of all, it was very useful and very helpful as a final review of everything that I wanted to know, so I just needed to know for the exam. And so what I would do, I would put the flashcard obviously on my computer, and then let's say the definition would pop up, and then I would personally try to answer it what it was, how would I treat it as an OT, things that it affects functionally, and then I would flip the flashcard, and then I would read the definition Mbcot, gave, and then what I would do, I would actually find the definition and that topic in the therapy ed book, because it comes in the therapy ed book, it's very detailed, and I felt like I got to learn a lot more from what the flashcard said in here. And so I found therapy ed actually very useful my last week, and I felt like I got a lot of like information towards the end of it, if that makes sense. So that's what I did with all the flashcards. I found that super helpful. I do each flashcard, look it up in the therapy ed book, and I felt like I learned so much from it, and I'm very glad I did, because some of the Nbcot's flashcards actually, like some of the topics that were on there weren't in the Aota study packet, and so I'm very glad I did that. And obviously with therapy ed, I felt like I learned a lot with it. I didn't read, like I said, therapy ed cover to cover, but I felt like doing the flashcard thing and doing therapy ed alongside of it, I felt like I covered a lot of the book very fast in 1 week, and it was awesome. The second thing that I used in the Nbcot study packet were the games, and they're kind of cute. It's like a soccer ball, and you like kick it to like the correct answer or whatever. But I found these very useful because it gave more perspective on like functionally how it would look like in regards to like the Allen cognitive scale and like ranges los amigos, because I feel like if you haven't seen that in real life or during field work or whatever, I feel like it's very hard to kind of visualize it. And so they gave like those like games, which were kind of fun, gave like a pretty good explanation on like what would go with each one of them. So I definitely recommend doing the games. And I know they had different other games like for feeding and stuff like that, and so you learn a lot with it, and it's like kind of fun, and you can just practice with it. Alright, so another reason why I really like the Nbcot study packet were for its practice questions and the practice test, because even like though like therapy ed and Aota study packet, they're both very helpful in regards to the material that you need to know, I felt like both of them did not, like the questions were not like the board exam. And Nbcot, obviously they write the test, their questions were written very similarly to how the board exam is written. Obviously it's not the same question, but it's the wording of it is very similar. So I feel like having that practice of seeing like how they write questions and just how to like, I guess like read the question, if that makes sense. I felt like the Nbcot gave great practice to that. So in regard to the two tests, I feel like I have some pros and some cons with them. I'm going to start with the cons one first, because it's not that big of a deal if you know it beforehand. But basically, so when I took the pre-test, I did it, I took it like it was like a real test. I remember I like went to my brother's office and I like had my mask on, you know, and I took it, and as soon as I clicked submit, I was like ready to kind of like review the questions that I missed. And what sucks is that it only comes back with your score and then how you did in each domain. It doesn't actually tell you exactly how you did in like on every single question. And I was like, oh darn it, I wish it would have, because I wanted to review my answers and see why I missed it and etc. And so that kind of sucked. However, if you know this beforehand, obviously you don't have to time, it's not timed, and so you can probably grab a scratch piece of paper and write down like the topic you want to review or the question or whatever, and then it's not a big deal. But I wish I would have known that before, because I felt like as soon as I was done, I was like, darn it. However, it was so nice in regards to how the questions were worded, because obviously I'd studied like therapy ed and Aota, and the questions weren't worded like that, and so having that was very, very helpful. And so I did the pre-test. I don't remember when I did the pre-test. It might have been like a random weekend or something, but the final full practice board exam I did the weekend before my actual board exam, and I'm so glad I did this. I took it like a normal test. Again, I went to my brother's office, put my mask on, and put like, you know, the hours on my stopwatch on my phone, and then I took it. And I didn't write down like the questions I wanted to review, because I just wanted to fully focus on this test, and I took it like seriously, and like it was like the real deal. And the score that I got actually was very similar to my actual exam. It was just like a few points off. So definitely recommend taking that, because I felt like it was the test that was most similar to the board exam. Obviously not the same questions, but the style of it, the format, the way the words are, like the questions are written, was very, very similar. So I feel like depending on how you do on that full practice exam is obviously, well, I can't say for sure because I don't have research behind it, but I'm sure they have it as like there for a reason. But I felt like that full practice test was like a good like way to see how you're going to do on the board exam. So definitely recommend taking that. So that's why I would really recommend the Nbcot study packet, because it was great for wording, great for like the resources, and also just great for the practice test. So actually I have one con with it. I know I mentioned it in the con before, but the second con that I had with the Nbcot study packet was that I felt like I did have to use a lot of resources apart from it, like the therapy ed one, and then there was a few times that I felt like I had to like look it up on a textbook or like a PowerPoint that my professor had back in school. So con regards to that, but overall I really liked it. Highly recommend taking that practice, especially that final full practice test. Alright, so those are the 3 things that I bought. Apart from that, I mentioned earlier, I used OT Exam Prepper Audio. I'm pretty sure that's his name. I always forget his name, but he's awesome. I listen to him on Spotify. Especially there's like a podcast that he made on the psychodynamic theory, just all the theories and frameworks. I always had those confused in my head, and I felt like he was awesome at explaining it. So highly recommend that one, and obviously all the other ones that he has on his on Spotify, and I believe he has iTunes too. But anyways, recommend him. Obviously, OT Miri, I feel like you can't pass the board exam without OT Miri. She's awesome and has amazing resources. And then actually, it wasn't until it was like 2 days or a day before I took my exam, I actually watched OT Rex. I watched only a handful of her videos, and I'm upset I didn't know about her before because she's awesome. She comes up with a bunch of cute ways to memorize things, and it was great. I really enjoyed her videos, so definitely take advantage of those. And yeah, I'm trying to think. If someone asked me which study material I preferred, I don't know which one I would say. I liked all of them for different reasons. Obviously, like I said before, if you only have access to one, or you can only afford one or whatever, you can obviously pass this exam. You don't require all 3. It might just take a little bit more effort to look it up in your school notes, or maybe finding it online or whatever. So don't stress out if you can't find it. I think the most important thing about this exam is knowing that our schools have prepared us so well, and fieldwork has prepared us so well. We're like trained to take this exam, and so I feel like the hardest part about it is the mental battle with it. It's so hard to stay confident sometimes, but just know that you can do it, and it just takes dedication and patience. And if you've gone through OT school and you're at this point getting ready for the exam, you can obviously do it. So don't worry, stay confident, stay strong, and keep working hard. You can do this. But anyways, I hope this video helped you guys, and I can't wait for you guys to tell me that you guys passed the exam, and we can all celebrate. But yeah, anyways, that is it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.